Hi, imagine it's early 1981 and you're a business person and you wanted one of these newfangled personal computers. What did you want? Well, you wanted something that was affordable, maybe something that's portable, definitely something that ran on the latest standards of the time, and definitely something that came with all the business software that you needed. Who delivered? Adam Osborne delivered, and we've got one! This is the baby that you wanted, the Osborne One. Wow, it doesn't get much more groundbreaking than this puppy. Ta-da! Look at this. It was an absolute revolution in its day, the Osborne One. Let's check it out. People's jaws dropped when Adam Osborne released this thing in early 1981. It was basically the world's first portable computer, or luggable computer, designed to basically fit under an airline seat so that you could actually carry this thing on a plane. You're a business person. This was the duck's guts. And it was released at the groundbreaking price of $1,795 US. What's that, about $4.5 or $5 grand in today's money? But the thing with this is that it came with all the software. It came with a WordStar, which was the word processor of choice back in the day. It came with a spreadsheet, SuperCalc, I think it was. It came with DBase 2. It ran the CPM operating system, which was the standard at the time. Remember, this is early 1981. The IBM PC didn't come out until late 1981. So basically, CPM was the standard. It wasn't only until a year or two later that DOS, PC-DOS, MS-DOS started to take over. So this ran the standard operating system, and it came at an incredible price. People joke that you basically got the computer for free because the software was worth about the same as the computer. Wow. But as far as actual computers go, it wasn't that great. It wasn't fast, it wasn't powerful. Standard Z80 processor working at a standard 4 megahertz, tiny 5-inch monochrome screen on the thing, 52 by 24 characters I think it was, which was software mapped into a large 128 by 32 screen, dual floppy drives in it, but they were only single-sided, 90K each. That wasn't, even back then, that wasn't a lot of data to actually store on these things, and it basically wasn't really expandable, so there was no modem built in or anything like that. So basically it was a pretty bare bones CPM computer, but the fact is it was at that price point and you got all that software for free. So businesses thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Adam Osborne thought, oh, we might sell 10,000 of these. They ended up selling 10,000 a month. And it was designed by the legendary Lee Felsenstein, who you might know as designer of the Soul computer and also the original moderator of the Homebrew Computer Club. He's the one who ran the meetings and sort of organized them and kept all the nerds under control. So an absolute classic computer, classic time, but it didn't last. Whilst this was a very successful computer, the ultimate failure of the company not too many years later led the industry to coin the famous term, the Osborne effect. And this is where Osborne basically released details, or rumors came about, that they were developing this new computer. And what happened? Nobody bought this one. They held off purchasing, so all the computer stores were left with stock, unsold stock, and things like that. People were holding out for that new machine coming out, and ultimately that played a fairly large part in the ultimate bankruptcy of Osborne Computers. So the Osborne effect, still a very popular term today to mean that if you mention your future product, release details of it, then it can have an impact on the sales of your current product. So just beware, many a company is come a gutser because of that. But I know what you're saying, Dave, stop yapping, we want to see inside this puppy. Well, yep, you know what we say here on the EEVblog, don't turn it on, take it apart. One of the most remarkable things when I first got this and took it apart is just how big and clunky this keyboard is. I mean, why does it have to be this thick? I mean, I know it's got nice, full travel, well, actually not really full travel there. Anyway, it's got a real keyboard on it, but why it's got to be that hugely thick is beyond me. I don't know. It's absolutely enormous, and it sort of adds to the size And the bulk of this thing, I mean, it is not really that big a computer, you know, like in terms of to fit an entire CPM computer in here with 5¼ inch two 5¼ inch full height drives and everything else, it's quite fine. But that keyboard just adds so much to it. Wow. So if we have a look at the front here, we've got a standard 0.1 inch header for the keyboard, and the keyboard's removable. That's a very nice touch with the ribbon cable. Not sure if they had any long-term issues with that though. It turns out they did have issues with the reliability of the ribbon cable going across, as you'll see when I tear down the keyboard later. And they sort of changed it to this curly type with a right angle attachment there in future revisions of the unit. And it looks very industrial with the, you know, the little pokey 5-inch CRT screen here, the big, huge 5¼ inch full height floppies in here. An early 81, did they actually have half height 5¼ inch discs available? I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, they went with the full height ones, and that's obviously the huge bulk of this product. They could have made it, you know, like half that height if they actually used or almost, you know, if they used a compact 5¼ inch, moved the screen down, whatever, redesigned the board or whatever, you know, they could have made this thing a lot smaller. But anyway, we have these two little cutouts here. Obviously they're designed for your discs, so your 5¼ inch floppy disks, you'd all store them in there and then you'd whack them in there. It couldn't, of course, you had to put the disk in to boot up CPM. You know, it wasn't built into ROM or anything like that. We've got a modem port over here, which is basically a serial port. It didn't have a built-in modem. You had to have an external one. Standard D25 serial RS-232. Good old IEEE 488, the HPIB interface standard, which you could use as a parallel port for driving printers. I think they had like a printer adapter and stuff. Of course, the keyboard and brightness and contrast for the CRT. External video. I'm not sure if anyone actually used the external video, but they might have. Do not remove while power is on. Well, let's whip that out. And that was a card edge connector. Got a big fat reset button there. It's sort of not really recessed, but you know, I guess it'd be hard to hit that one accidentally. And there's an external 9-pin D connector here labeled BAT, and that must be for an external battery. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone using an external battery with this thing because it was mains powered, did not have a battery built in. So while it was portable, in quote marks, yeah, it was not the world's first battery-powered portable computer. And we've also got external RCA socket here, presumably for the external monitor, but yeah, I don't know anyone who actually used an external monitor with this thing. But anyway, there's the badge shot for you badge aficionados. Let's have a look at the back of this baby, and you'll find that there's not much at all. This one, the carry handle's gone, all completely crusty and rusty. So yeah, it probably had like a proper leather strap or something on there. And you've got mains input. That's it. This thing basically was not expandable. And for those playing along at home, serial number A20370. Given that they sold like 10 or 11,000 of these in the first month, I believe, could this be a very early unit? Well, there's only one way to find out. Take it apart. So this thing was actually designed to be fairly rugged and actually survive drops, I believe. But so inside, we expect maybe to find some sort of cushioning support for the CRT, perhaps. Anyway, we'll find out because there are, you know, many reports of this thing actually surviving all the rough handling, you know, taking on business trips and planes and stuff like that. So it was famously designed to fit under an airline seat, and I think that might have been one of Adam Osborne's first requirements to Lee Felsenstein, was that, hey, I want this baby to fit under an airline seat. This is a business machine. Real business people, they take their personal computers on the airplanes. And there's one thing you'll notice with the Osborne One is that it is actually fanless. There's some grills here on the front, but yeah, there is no fan in this thing. So, apart from the floppy drives, silent operation. Beauty.
And of course, this isn't the original color of this thing. It was actually white, but it's yellowed. This is a classic case of bromine, a fire retardant material in the ABS plastics of the day in these early computers. Very common for old computers like this to turn yellow. All right, so let's open this thing up. Got the knobs off with the grub screws, and there'll be there's going to be a cable attached to that, but ta-da! Apart from that, we're in like Flynn. There's a bit of dust inside here, but not a huge amount. But of course, given that it's fanless, you wouldn't expect a huge amount in there. So they've got, like, there seems to be a lot of wasted space under this main board here. I mean, this main board's actually on an angle, so it slopes down towards the back here. It's got these metal brackets, but yeah, there's it's a fair bit of wasted space inside this puppy. So I'm not sure why they couldn't lower the floppy drives down. I know they did use this space in here and here to hold the floppy drives, but they could have had an external pouch for that and made the thing smaller perhaps. I mean, there's a lot of air in there and there, so yeah, it's not the most efficient layout. Oh yeah, we got some crusty stuff. Now, as for the CRT mount, it is separated from the outside of the case, so it seems to be fairly rigidly mounted to the inner plastic, but that's going to allow a reasonable amount of shock absorption. You see that fold over like that, so that's an interesting sort of mechanical solution for mounting the CRT in there. But they certainly, it's not like they've whacked on some sort of spring shock mount or something like that, I don't think. Now, I'm not sure how much help Lee Felsenstein had on actually designing this thing, but it could have been a fairly one-man bandish type operation. So, I probably wouldn't expect a huge amount of industrial, big company optimization and getting it right down. They probably went, I want it to fit under an airline seat. That's the requirement. This is the envelope. Make it fit. And, they would have had a tight time frame to do it in. So, yeah, it's not necessarily the most optimized solution. Alright, I've taken the screws out the back, so hopefully, and the side here, there's just 2 screws there, so hopefully this inner chassis will just pull out. That's the plan anyway. Do I have to tip it upside down and lift the whole lid off? It's going to be ugly. I think that's the key, just wiggle it out like that. Wiggle, 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 yeah. Come on. Otherwise, you've got to have someone to help you, I think. But, ultimately, I think we are in like Flynn. Errol, that is. So that really is quite fascinating how it's the inner chassis is just this folded ABS plastic, I presume it is, in a shell like this. And I guess it's actually... It's probably kind of clever in that this would be really cheap to manufacture. I mean, it's just basically folded plastic like that, and it gives some support in there, some give for the internal CRT, which does seem to be... has it got rubber? No, I think it's rigidly connected. CRT is rigidly connected, but then that gives some give to the outer shell. So... yeah, it's just... could you use the word clever? I don't know, but certainly clever at a low cost. That's for sure, I think. Now, if we take a look at the bottom, we can see the classic double-sided layout here. Most of the traces on the bottom are going in the horizontal direction. You'll find that most of the traces on the top side of the board going in the vertical direction like this. None of this 4-layer rubbish back in the day. And obviously all our memories over here, CPU's in here somewhere, and that looks like quite a decent layout, typical of the day. I don't know if Lee himself actually laid out the board. They may have had somebody else do that, but yeah, that's pretty neat. And of course, absolutely classic rolled tin plated board here, and then the solder mask over that. Hence all the little Oh, the little crinkly solder mask like that. Geez, I don't miss that solder mask at all. These, famously back in the day, you get poor quality solder masks. The resin technology and all the materials technology wasn't that great. Sometimes they'd peel off and it'd be pretty horrible. Made in the United States of America. Then if we flip it on its back and take those 4 screws off, ta-da! There is the main PCB. That actually comes apart quite well. I like it. And here's where all the magic happens. 2-board construction, main logic board down here, and it looks like this one is most likely the video board. Dead giveaway on the video board. We'll take a quick look at that. Obviously, we've got our character generator ROM here. We've got some 26116. They would be the character the video RAM, and this connector over here is the coax that goes off to the RCA connector, so that's for the external monitor. But wow, this is how you're doing. Check this out. I mean, nice board. They use the dip socket here, board-to-board interconnect with those, down here as well. So there's 3 board-to-board interconnects. That's really nice, and they've gone and ruined it with this completely how you doing wiring going over soldered to individual pins and vias all over the damn board. What? Lee, seriously, what were you thinking? I mean, you must have been desperate to get this thing out. Oh, well. I mean, this actually screams of PCB layout desperation, actually. Like, oh, I've got a point up here, couple of points down here. Oh, I can't get them right down to a connector down here. But, a lot of these are pretty close. You couldn't route those down here, but, might have run out of routing space, but, that's the PCB layout person's job, is to figure that all out, and, they've made the conscious, they did the board-to-board interconnects here, everything's fine, and then they purposely had the classic dip ribbon cable arrangement going over to various points, whether, last-minute change and they didn't want to respin the board or what, or whether or not they just ran out of routing space. It'd be interesting to know the story of that one. And I might actually see if I can find some photos of some later model units as well. Maybe they might have fixed that in a later design. But, serial number 20,000, I think this is one of the early units. Hi to all my Brazilian viewers. Are there any TI fabs left in Brazil, I wonder? But of course, this is not just the CRT board, it's also got the Z80 processor. In this case, it's an NEC job, the D780C, but it's a Z80 equivalent processor. So it's interesting that the main processor's on here, and you'll see that it actually goes into a socket right down to the secondary board, which is rather interesting. So it's a fascinating decision that went into putting the processor on this secondary board, which has to do the display stuff, and not have it on the main logic board over here. That's really weird. I'd love to hear Lee's, rationale behind all that. So underneath our video board, we can actually see this is the main Z80 processor socket here, and then we've actually got our ROM, so there it is. We'll be able to see if this puppy works later, but I'll get out the EEPROM reader and actually extract the data from that, and I'll have it on my website for those playing along at home. So here's our serial number and our revision. It's upside down here. This is revision J, and I'll link in the service manual for this thing down below. Very comprehensive service manual. It lists all the revisions of the board, and they did a complete layout and everything else. It talks about manual wiring changes that we've actually, seen down here and things like this. But this is one of the released boards after November 1981, Rev J. So why it still has all that point-to-point wiring, not entirely sure, because like a Rev E version of the board was a complete relayout of the board, and they even mention a later, I think 1982, there was a complete multi-layer version of this board to meet FCC requirements, because this double-sided board wouldn't be that terrific. There's no big ground plane on here, so it wouldn't have met the new FCC requirements, and quite a few computer companies of the day actually had issues with SEC compliance, and you hear stories about the old Trash 80 computer, I think it is, like you turn it on, Tandy Trash 80, that is, TRS 80, for those who don't like the name Trash 80. Like, you turn it on, it interferes with your AM or FM radio or something like that. So, yeah, so they went to a 4-layer board for this, but this is definitely one of the earlier double-sided layouts. So other stuff around the processor here, the ROM, of course, and then some classic Motorola MC6821 PIA or parallel peripheral interface adapter, and then this ceramic package here, this SAB 1793. I haven't seen that one before, but that's looks to be the floppy drive controller, and no surprises, because if you follow the money, follow the traces from this floppy controller up here, all the way across here, it's going to that ribbon cable, which then goes off to the floppy drives. And then next to that, we've got a Motorola MC6850. That's our UART for our serial ports. Dead giveaway if you show the traces going down there. That's going to our serial outputs here, both for the modem and the main serial port. And we've got a buzzer up here because, well, we've got the bell character on our keyboard, so it has to go ping. And there's one thing which you'll notice that's not on here, and that is your traditional battery backup. There was none of this CMOS BIOS rubbish back in the day, and there was no real-time clock either. So this thing couldn't even keep the time when you switched it off. And we can see right down here that this is actually a release Rev F board. Ooh, look at all the dust. And here's our memory, check it out. The interesting thing about this is that, look, it's all hickledy-pickledy. They just got the chips from wherever they could. Didn't matter the brand, the factory, whatever. No, they didn't buy these all at once. They just, the purchasing department at Osborne must have just got the cheapest memory from wherever they could get it and then just whack it in there. Thank you very much. And of course, we've got the classic bypass arrangement like this. You see the big fat power traces running under the memory like this. So they have a bypass cap on axial, thank you, none of this radial rubbish. And on each IC like that of the memory array, and then some bulk tantalum stuff over here. Ooh, yeah, fire starters, tantalums. And as far as the battery pack went, well, there's no regulation circuitry around here. There's a couple of diodes to prevent reverse polarity, but that's about it. So you would have had to power this thing, like a back power it through the board. So presumably that's a 5-volt battery pack, or it could have had 5 and 12 and then going off. I'm not entirely sure of the details. There's also another thing missing here, and that is like a traditional CRT controller chip. So we've got the processor, we've got our character generator ROM, our display RAM, but basically, yeah, no traditional CRT controller chip. Must be doing it all manually. And as far as the rest of it goes, yeah, look at our exposed mains wire in there, no worries. Wouldn't be too compliant these days, but back then, not a problem. And as for the power supply, nothing hugely special here. We've got a 115 volt tap flapping around in the breeze here. We've got our power transistor on the side there. We've got a couple of axial diodes there with their heat sinks, and Rubicon caps there, thank you very much. And as was common back then and still is today, Aztec components, somebody else just laid this thing out, there you go, 1980, so it's reasonably old. Actually, it's a rather interesting layout in that the mains is coming in here through the fuse, around, and primary side switching, and then the secondary stuff. So the mains input right next to the secondary output. Anyway, fascinating. And we, of course, we'd be getting 5 volts out as well for the main logic. Now, interestingly, tucked away inside there, that to me looks all the world like a thermal cutout. Is it not one of those thermal switches? I wonder what it's doing. Well, that's fascinating. I followed the wire and it actually comes out here and goes to the mains input. So it's a thermal cutout on the mains input. Okay. And for all you floppy drive aficionados, here we go. It's a Micro Peripherals Inc. model 51, is it? Manufactured up March 1982. And look, I love how they've got the calibration wheel, speed wheel on here, 50 and 60 revolutions per minute to actually calibrate this using a strobe light. Fantastic. But yeah, the rubber's still in good nick. That'll that most likely still work. Anyway, you can see the head in there. You can see the gold tape under there. Single-sided drive. Now, rumor has it that they deliberately decided to go with a single-sided drive instead of a double-sided drive because they thought double-sided might not be as reliable if somebody drops this thing, being a portable computer, and that limited the data, capability to single-sided discs. So, yeah, I don't know the truth to that, but anyway, single-sided only. Even though double-sided was available back then, they just decided not to do it. And as is classic for the day, there's not much inside your typical floppy drive. And I love the sector sensor here. Check it out. There we go. They've actually got that as just the, look, there it is. Ta-da! They've just got the photo sensor directly in there, and just that just clips on. Oh, absolutely brilliant. Oh, wonderful tech. 5¼ inch floppy. I miss it. And you'll notice another sensor down in there. Hopefully, you can see it in the darkness, and that's for seeing that there's a disc actually inserted in this thing. Now, I'd love to get the CRT module out for you, but I've taken all the screws out, but it doesn't seem to be budging, so I'm not sure what the deal is there. I'm running out of time, so I might have to leave that, but nothing too exciting. It's from Nippon Electric Co. And, well, yeah, it's a little 5-inch CRT. Oh, love the big power resistor. Oh. Now, I have to know, what the hell made this keyboard so big and thick? Nothing. Oh, we've got something, some pins, really bent to buggery there. What's going on? Anyway, Tech Inc. assembled in Mexico. Hi to all my Mexican viewers, but yeah, basically, there's a lot of empty space inside this thing. I mean, they've made it ergonomic like this, but it's like, it only needs to be that thick, and it's like, no, fail. Anyway, separate numeric keypad. Look at this. And the bell. You've got to have the bell symbol. Got to make it go ping. And the other ridiculous thing is there's absolutely no strain relief at all on this ribbon cable. There's nothing to hold it in the back. That's just, wow, that is crap. So that is one interesting beast, the Osborne One, and basically the world's first portable, luggable computer. Wasn't battery powered, but hey, this was an absolute phenomenon. They practically gave the computer away for free with the software. Go figure. Anyway, this was a revolutionarily groundbreaking product, but hey, it didn't last that long. Other models like K-Pro and other portables came along fairly quickly after this. And of course, the classic Osborne effect where they announced a new product and this thing just, sales of this thing dried up. And also, rumor has it that when they went bankrupt, apparently all the employees just walked out with the units, and security apparently didn't know. Like they did, it looked like they were carrying out big briefcases or something like that. So they apparently just walked out with all the stock. Anyway, I'm not sure how true that is, but fascinating teardown of this thing. And I'd love to hear from Lee. I'm pretty sure he's still around. What's he doing these days? And the design of this thing. But yeah, it was popular back in the day, but didn't last very long. But a truly groundbreaking product. So I hope you enjoyed that teardown. I got some high-res photos over at EEVblog.com, link down below somewhere. Check that out. If you like the video, please give it a big thumbs up and discuss it down below and over on the forum and all that sort of jazz. I will actually put this back together and try and power it up. I think it actually stands a reasonably good chance of working, given it's 35 years old or thereabouts, approaching that. It's these old computers, not much that can go wrong with them apart from power supplies and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I don't have any CPM floppies for it. So if it does work, I can't power it up. Oh, as in get it running. Anyway, catch you next time. Oh, I'll tell you what, I can't help but be fascinated by the physical construction of this thing. Oh, wow. It's so kind of, we've been given the envelope as a designer. I've been given the envelope and let's just make it fit. And just bend some plastic and, she'll be right. No worries, mate. And, yep, oops, the carry strap broke putting it back together. Oh, and yes, it does actually survive a drop of several inches onto the bench, onto the CRT face. No worries. All right, let's see if this puppy still powers up, shall we? Let's give it a bell. I plugged the mains into it. This is a 230 volt model, so fingers crossed. Whoa! Heard it go clunk. I saw the LEDs. I saw the LEDs. Come on. You can do it. Come on. These CRTs take a while to brightness. Whoa, we're in. Osborne One. Look at that. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Osborne One, Rev 1.44, copyright 1983, OCC. Osborne Computer Corporation. Insert disk and drive AM, press return. Unfortunately, I have no way to actually produce a 5 1/4 inch floppy, let alone one with CPM 2.2 on it. So it wouldn't surprise me if the floppies still work. They might need a head clean or something like that. But yeah, I mean, all the electronics still work in this baby. Do something useful, damn you. Where's a CPM 5 1/4 inch floppy when you need one? And how quick does it boot? That quick. Well, except when it's got to read the OS from the floppy, which is CPM. So if we have a quick look at the ROM dump here, this is the main BIOS ROM. You can see the ASCII equivalent down here, and you can see that we've got boot error there. Basically just in here looking for little hidden Easter egg text or something like that. But here's the boot screen, Osborne One, Rev 1.44, copyright 1983. That's exactly what we saw when we turned it on. Insert disk drive 1, press return, blah, blah, blah. But that's basically all she wrote in terms of text in there. There we go. So we've got some keyboard key mapping, presumably. What's going on there? Anyway, I'm not sure. I can't see any like hidden Easter egg like Lee Felsenstein was here.